Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. It's 12 o'clock, high noon. We can start the next session. And the next session will be chaired by Torsten Langemach. Torsten is a representative of the Brandenburg State Bird Conservation Center in Germany. He worked with us for a long time. He was initiator also of the CMS meeting in Khymyn in 2006, working with bird conservation, mainly with lesser spotted eagle. So his name is Pomarina in email, but also great bastards and others, but sometimes also with the small brown birds like aquatic warblers. So he will be chairing these sessions, and I started to record the session. And please, Torsten, keep the chair of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jarek. We are going further east now and further north as well, with 4 presentations in the next 2 hours from several regions, and we will start with Lithuania. I'm looking forward, or we all are looking forward to hearing latest news from Zymantas from Lithuania. It's your turn, Zymantas, now.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, and thank you for inviting also me, and it's pleasure. I'm just trying to share the screen. I somehow can share. Yeah. Can you see the slide in the slideshow mode, or?
Perfect. Yes, it is already.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I just put my time so I can follow that the chair doesn't kick me somehow. Okay, so hello again, and I'll try. I was asked to give you the overview presentation about the aquatic wobbler population in Lithuania. I will also mention our pilot conservation translocation initiative and share the results. I think it's quite exciting, and I hope my presentation also gives a certain hope, also referring to Martin's presentation and his concern about the global situation of the aquatic wobbler in the range. So, okay, yeah, it's moving. So just to remind you, maybe some of you don't know, or the Lithuanian aquatic wobbler population is mostly located in currently into 2 areas. One is Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve. I don't know if you can see my mouse, or I can maybe make a pointer, laser pointer. Yeah, here it is. And the other one is in Nemunas Delta regional park, Nemunas Delta region. And in Nemunas Delta region, it's probably 98% of the Lithuanian population at the moment. So most of the aquatic wobblers are located here. Historically, there have been also some records in the eastern part of Lithuania. And in Lithuania, we basically have 2 types of a habitat, which is low productivity marshes on the bottom. You can see we're having low farming interests. So mostly in those areas, we have to stimulate or motivate farming in those areas and mowing, or perform the nature management in such areas. It looks similar marshes like in Biebrzha, and this particular picture is taken in Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve. This habitat type is located. It also present in Nemunas Delta region. On the top, there is a high productivity alluvial sedge meadows, which are dominating in Nemunas Delta region. Most of them are in polder systems, but we also have some low productivity marshes as well in Nemunas Delta region. The difference of that habitat type is also that this has a high farming interest. So here we are competing, conservation competes with farmers' interests, and some they want to farm more intensively to produce fodder, or those who are eager to go to the environmental or conservation management that is involving a question of compensations. I won't introduce any projects in more detail, but I will just say that most of the active conservation efforts by Baltic Environmental Forum and NGO and generally in Lithuania has been done by the two projects funded by the LIFE program. The first one was called the Baltic Aquatic Warbler LIFE project, which has ended in 2015, and that was working in Lithuania and Latvia. Major focus was of the project restoration of a habitat covering approximately 1,300 hectares, and another highlight was the design of a special agro-environmental measure, where I remember we were driving in a bus with Jarek and other team, Francisca, and discussing the particularities of this agro-environmental measure. So it is designed and functioning till now. Thanks also Poland for inspiring to make this measure. The other project is so-called Magnetocatus acrola. For those who is interested in what it means the great duchy of aquatic warbler. As the title suggests, the range of this project is Lithuania and Belarus. Overall project area is 20,000 hectares. Most of that is Zymantas, one of a major project area within this project, but also probably most important area for aquatic warbler. Most of the project we are doing on habitat restoration, most of that hydrology management, but we also, I think, the very exciting activity is implementation of a pilot conservation translocation. And the other component of this project is solving the problem in Nemunas Delta of what to do with the late cut biomass, where this high farming interest is, and those who are protecting aquatic warbler and they are performing mowing in August, they have a problem what to do with the biomass. In Lithuania, that's not only initiatives in Lithuania for conservation of aquatic warbler. The Nemunas Delta Regional Park performs regular monitoring of aquatic warblers in Nemunas Delta. There have been from the EU structural funds also some measures financed to restore the habitat restoration. That's kind of the core slide. What I was asked to make from this presentation is the current status of the population in Lithuania. I try to move this, and as you can see, the trend is at the moment going up. I was just checking with my colleagues during the Polish presentation about if we have found any birds ringed from Poland last year, and it seems not. There was no records, no ringed birds appearing in Lithuania flying from Poland. So we don't have the proof that maybe aquatic warblers were running out of the fire from Viebrza maybe to Lithuania, but nobody knows. Probably. Last year we counted 316 singing males, which is the highest number of singing males ever counted in Lithuania based on the full counts. If you see the data in 2004, was also partly extrapolated. So, but in the full counts, last year was a Lithuanian record of aquatic warblers. Of course, it's a very nice graph and a very positive graph, but I realized that in the global context and comparing to the situation in Poland and Ukraine and Belarus, this 316 is a very little number anyway. So, but and still you see also that our aquatic warbler conservation projects funded by the LIFE program started in 2010, and this is the time scale and the trend. So we humbly can assume that we helped aquatic warblers in the population in Lithuania to be restored. Yeah, maybe I don't know how to conclude it. Probably in the reports of the birds directive implementation to European Commission, Lithuanian population is considered to be stabilized at the moment. So yeah, that is maybe how it can be concluded. I mentioned most of the aquatic warblers found in Lithuania, 90% population is in Nemunas Delta, distributed in various polders and marshlands. And there was also investigations done about the internal migration between the sites, which suggest that basically this Nemunas Delta population is like one big single population, which is flying from one site close to another site if the conditions are not favorable. Okay. I want just to say a few words about the existing, what is the existing support schemes for farmers. I mentioned you that especially with alluvial meadows habitats have a high farming interest, and what kind of we are having some support schemes for farmers. We do have a special agro-environmental measure for aquatic warbler conservation funded under Common Agriculture Policy Rural Development Program. The actions, I won't go into details about it, but you can see that the level of payment depending on the habitat can be 209 or 160 euros per hectare. In addition to other payments like direct payments, LFA payments, we have a special single payment or project-based payment support also from Common Agriculture Policy under the so-called non-productive investments measure 4, which can pay farmers for the habitat restoration. So they can clean up the shrubs, redundant biomass, reeds, and then continue maintaining habitat within the regular agro-environmental measure. But in this, for restoration, they can even get up to 80,000 euros subsidy for restoration of the habitats. And it is practically used, this measure, and we have new habitats restored by this measure. And for solving the late cut biomass problem, we have established a special biomass processing facility, which aims on collecting the biomass and produce pellets. Not for biofuel mostly, but we are producing pellets for the animal bedding. The facility is actually operating, and we're also having sales. Most of the sales are going to Scandinavia, to the horse stables. So it is operating. You can see the link down where you can later maybe can click on this website and can see more information, and you can see the marketing of these products and so on. As the title of the symposium is talking about the stepping stone habitats, and Jarek has presented the stepping stone, the slides of foreseen stepping stone habitats in Poland. We also, within our project, we also did the research, and we designed the stepping stone habitat network for Lithuania and Belarus. Here in the slide, you can see the current breeding sites of aquatic warblers in Lithuania and Belarus. And in this slide, you can see the marked in blue. These are potentially selected stepping stone sites, which needs to be restored further and to be suitable for aquatic warbler to breed. I think, Jarek, it would be quite interesting to merge maybe Polish data with Lithuanian and Belarus data to see how the overall map looks like. I've sent you also an email about it. And the last part of my talk is about the pilot conservation translocation, which has been implemented in 2018 and 2019 in Lithuania. The whole idea has been discussed already within Aquatic Warbler conservation team for a while, and eventually in 2015 in Venta, the meeting of the signatory parties of Memorandum of Understanding for Aquatic Warbler Conservation concluded and recommended to perform the Aquatic Warbler translocation and to select the source site Zymantas as the most significant area for aquatic warblers, so they will not have a big harm if we take some birds, and the release site in Lithuania in Zymantas Biosphere Reserve. So the translocation overall has an extra challenge, the cross-border aspect and even cross-European Union aspect, which of course in terms of the paperwork was a big challenge for us to make all the documents and permissions. We have translocated overall 100 birds, juveniles, from Zymantas to Zymantas. So 50 birds, translocated 50 birds each year. So 50 in 2018 and 50 in 2019. And the main goal was actually to develop and test a method for aquatic warbler translocation, thinking that maybe this approach could be further applied in other countries as well, if successful. So we didn't know, is it successful or not? And I think aquatic warbler faces a particular challenges that it's a passerine bird and long distance migrant, and it's a wetland bird. So according to the ecological basics, these are, how to say, the highest mortalities could be expected for these types of birds. And probably that's the reason why translocation of the long-distance migrant passerines in globally has been very few. I think there are just few bird species in United States of America, Canada, where the translocation has been performed. We have based our translocation a lot methodology learning from RSPB experience on Searle bunting translocation performed, so that was a big inspiration for us. But we also inventorized all other possible experiences, and there was a great help of the experience of Karl Schulz-Hagen, who has been keeping aquatic warblers also for the research in cages, and that was very useful experience for us. So we developed the translocation program. You can see the title page, and then later you will be able to download it from I put also the link to download if you want. And we made it based on the IUCN guidelines made for the conservation translocation. So we analyzed the habitat, the threats, and so we made everything according to these guidelines made by IUCN. And I will just briefly. I don't know if you see the whole screen or you also see, how to say, the part of the Zoom. I don't know. At least in my screen, part of the slide is covered. So, Yaroslav.
No, we can see whole screen.
Okay.
It's dependent how you prepare your Zoom. It's okay for at least okay. I can see it. Okay.
Good. So I will now go very briefly through like 5 stages or five elements of the translocation, so you can have an imagination how it looked like. So first of all, we have translocated birds in nests. So we collected nests and then the nests with the chicks has been moved to the release site. So the first stage was search and nest pickup from Zymantas. That was very labor-intensive work of our Belarusian ornithologists who have been searching for the nests, and of course they had to find the extra nests. They had to balance that they're taking the chicks with a similar age, and once the nests were brought from the Fenmaya into the local base, they have been taken over by the caretaking team who has been feeding the chicks. So we had a nice team of mummies. Most of them were actually old sharks of aquatic warbler conservation, like Alexandr Kozulin, for instance, and others in Belarus, colleagues from Belarus. They had to feed the aquatic warblers juveniles every 20 minutes period with the natural food, insects, the grasshoppers, horseflies. So there was a separate team also of collecting the insects. So there was one team collecting the insects, the other one team was feeding the chicks, and the third team was collecting the nest from the Fenmaya. And you can imagine if you have 50 chicks and 20 minutes interval, so once you finish the last feeding, you have to start with the first you started. So you have to, so it's kind of like constant feeding period from I think 4 o'clock in the morning till roughly 9 o'clock in the evening, with a very slight lunch break in the afternoon when there is a hot and the chicks don't want to eat. Yeah, I'm trying to get into the next slide somehow. Oh, yeah. So then we had a full set of boxes with nests and chicks. So there was the transport stage, transfer of nestlings. Roughly, it was approximately 500 kilometers drive. We did the translocation during night when the birds are sleeping, so we don't have to feed them. In reality, the release site was reached already in the sunlight. So when we were crossing to Lithuania, we had also to stop like every 20 minutes to feed chicks. Later, we got skilled and we were feeding the chicks while driving. So that was kind of a challenge, short stage but important stage to transfer it to the release site. The third stage is growing young in cages. So first of all, and in the picture in below, you see these small boxes where the chicks are still in the nest. Then they start going already out of the nest. Then we move the nest family to these small cages, which you can see in the picture above. So each nest has its own apartment. So each cage for each nest family, and feeding interval remains the same, starting like 20 minutes period. But later, when the chicks grow, then this feeding period is getting longer, up to like 1 hour at a time. And in the bigger cages, when the birds, the basic principle is that in the small boxes we keep the birds until they are leaving the nest. In these bigger indoor cages, we keep birds until they are learning how to eat themselves. So we were putting in the small cupboards the food, and they were starting to collect the food mixture and also insects. The fourth stage was moving the birds to the outdoor aviaries. They were put into two places in the release site. Again, a separate outdoor aviary for a separate family. So each nest has its own, again, apartment, a bigger one. And the principle is keeping the birds in this outdoor aviaries closed until they are able to hunt themselves. And we also were looking into the development of the tail, and when we see the tail is fully developed, then we say that they are ready to fly. And we were continuing feeding them by feeders, but also catching a big amount of insects into and releasing into aviaries, so these little aquatic warblers can run around and hunt and learn hunting. And we also were constantly present. You can see a tent. So we were living in the Fenmire, and that period was roughly about 2 weeks, where we were constantly observing them. And it's a predator management, also feeding, but also keeping the safety so nobody steals our precious birds. And the final stage is a soft release from this outdoor aviaries. So we opened the especially windows from the feeders, and the birds were leaving the aviaries. Some birds were doing that immediately, others were still being in the aviary for a few days. So it was like a soft and gradual release. After they have been flying away, they periodically have been also returning for overnight and also feeding. So we have been keep feeding them also in these outdoor aviaries as long as we were observing these birds. So gradually they were coming more and more rarely to the outdoor aviaries. I think the last record was coming to the feeder was, I think, 1st of August, I think. So rather late. And talking about the success and the result, so we had in our program we had defined success criteria, and there were two. So first was related to the survival of the chicks until they are released into the wild. And we defined that at least 74% should survive until we release them into the wild. And the second success criteria was that at least one translocated bird has to come back after wintering to Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve. And these success criteria were defined again, thinking about overall goal of the translocation, to test the method if in principle it works. So of course one translocated bird return out of 50 or out of 100 would be definitely too little to make it to mainstream the method, but we had like this one translocated bird return just to prove that the method in principle works. It doesn't talk about the efficiency of the method. And the results, survival rate in first year 2018 was 98%, so only one chick unfortunately died out of 50. In 2019, the second round of the translocation, all birds successfully were released into the wild. All translocated birds were successfully released into the wild, so 100% survival rate. Talking about the return of the birds, to our big surprise and happiness, in 2018, we have more than 20% of the released population were coming back to Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve, a release site. So 11 birds have been returning. I think it was like 3 females and 9 singing males. So the figure 11 is at least 11, because finding females is of course a challenging work, and we didn't want also to disturb the habitat a lot, so there could be also a higher number. In 2019, we have counted 10 returns, and I think 3 of them were returns from the already like a second year returns from the 2018 translocation season. So it proves that actually translocated birds already also the second year they are coming back and they are successfully breeding in the release site. We will, of course, continue the monitoring this year and the next year and see how these our translocated birds are doing, if they're coming back. We are not planning to do the translocation in Lithuania already like this year. So it was like 2 years test to prove if it works. And the conclusion is that, yes, it works. And looking at the figures and the success criteria fulfillment, I think it's even it even qualifies for concluding it as efficient method as it is to be applied for the mainstreaming conservation translocations. In this chart, you can see the population of aquatic warblers singing males in Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve. So there are no counted females here. And you can see in the blue color, this is the share of translocated birds. But you see in the last years, the 2020, last year we have counted 33 singing males in Žuvintas. Part of them were through the translocated birds, but of course not all of them. I will switch off. Okay. But of course, not all of them. And as you see, the big share was generally increase of the population. I might assume there could be two possibilities. One, that maybe they came from Poland. Other possibility was that Belarusian birds, translocated Belarusian birds, were very fertile and successful in breeding, and then helped to increase the native population. More information. So I was just giving a very brief, very surface presentation about the aquatic warbler translocation. There are much more details to be presented and illustrated. So I invite you to, we have a very exciting video journal made in the translocation in 2019. You can click it on the slide when you get it, and you can watch it with short films. That shows a lot the kitchen, how it all worked. We are at the moment in the preparation of the Aquatic Warbler Conservation Translocation Handbook. So it will be soon available for download and distribution. So we will record there, we're recording there all the experience and knowledge so others can apply it. And we were just before this symposium, we're discussing with Jarek that maybe it would be wise also to make some kind of a webinar using this Zoom platform or others to make more detailed presentation dedicated for the aquatic warbler translocation. So about the dates, nothing is yet decided. So please follow our website, and you will be it will be a notification made there. And of course, we are looking a lot for expression of the interest from other countries. I don't know if it's Poland, Germany. Germany has already expressed an interest, but Hungary, maybe if you are considering performing the conservation translocation, we would be more than happy to get in contact with you and advise and share our experience in more detailed and personalized way if wanted. So please contact us. Yeah, and some pictures, not of birds, but of people. That was really a very exciting period, a very intensive period. And you can see, for instance, in the left bottom, the lady catching the insects. This is actually a farmer's visit from the Nemunas Delta region to visit Žuvintas Biosphere Reserve, translocated birds, to see how they're doing. And then they helped us to catch the insect, and yeah, that was a lot of fun and intensiveness, and was a really great time. And on the picture on the right above, you can see the frontline Lithuanian team, with exception Irina in the middle with white shirt, in Belarusian team. On the back row, you see the mothers of aquatic warblers, juveniles. You see the team, Belarusian colleagues who have been taking care of the birds in Belarus. That's it. I hope I fit it in time, and I am ready for questions. I think, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Zymantas. What was not only interesting, it was really exciting for all of us. And we see that a lot of things happened since our last meeting on the occasion of the MOU meeting in 2015. So you learned a lot and you did a lot. And the most exciting part was for many of us, probably the last one, because it's actually new terrain. And especially for us in Germany, it's very interesting to get these results. So the floor is open for a small discussion. We are running a little out of time, but I think we can leave to questions if there are some. Martin, was that a...
No, I only want to congratulate Zymantas and the Belarusians. But I would like to say that I think it's a very good idea to make a Zoom webinar on translocation. Maybe when our new live project is approved and is running, we should do that. And I think we have no participant from Hungary today, but we will for sure contact them and try to get them to this webinar.
Yeah, sure.
And I was completely impressed to experience this translocation. We have visited Zymantas several times during our field work with the geolocators, and it was an absolutely great experience.
So it's much beyond all our expectations.
Yeah, so thank you to Zymantas and the Belarusians.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much also from my side. We stay in the region.
Joanna has a question. I think Joanna wants to raise
sorry, I didn't see. Joanna, please.
Hello. Hi, Zymantas. Thank you for your presentation and thank you for your great job and your results. I've been following all seasons with you. Unfortunately, I had my own chicks to feed, so human chicks, so I couldn't come, and so congratulations. And I have a question. What about plans for this season, for the next seasons? Do you have some ideas already?
There are some thoughts still to be discussed. Thinking about Belarus, translocating in Belarus, but maybe that's something maybe could be raised tomorrow. So nothing really very tangible. But in Lithuania, our primary mission was to test if method works. Yes, it works, and it seems to be effective. And we didn't plan to make like a third-year translocation. So I think we will definitely not make a translocation this year. We will look at the monitoring of the birds, how the population in Zymantas is looking. I think for Zymantas, the next step is raising a question of recovering the population. So not only just testing, but recovering the population. So let's see what the population dynamics is, and I think we are open in making the translocation maybe 2022 if we have a budget savings and if this would be needed. So we are open, but generally it's not planned.
Okay, thank you. And what about ringing? Are you still ringing adult birds?
Yes, first of all, all translocated birds, of course, has been ringed with a colored ring. You saw also on Oleg in the pictures, but we keep the approach that in Zymantas we are ringing all the birds, so also local ones, and they are the Zymantas Biosphere Reserve Administration are doing that work every year. So when we can really see who are kind of the newcomers to the site and who are old residents of the site and so on. And similar thing is also Then in Nemunas Delta, by the local ornithological Ventės Ragas station, where ornithologists are also ringing the birds. But when ringing like 300 birds is not so easy to catch them all and so on. So so of course they are not all ringed, but quite a lot of them are.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I think we should proceed. Perhaps we have at the end of this session some minutes for further discussion. But let's move now to the region where your aquatic warblers come from, to Belarus, not only to Zymantas, but to Belarus at all. And we will listen to Alexandr Kozulin, who gives us latest news from this region. I saw your name, Alexandr, already, but obviously you have no camera, but we see the presentation.
And I will help Alexandre to do the translation. I understand that Alexandre will speak in Russian, so I'll try in the short to reflect in English.
Ah, yeah, now we see you.
Добрый день всем. Меня
Добрый
слышно?
день.
Вначале хотел поделиться новой фотографией. У нас раньше пропадали птенцы, и мы писали, что непонятная причина. Но в этом году у нас видеокамера засняла, как уж пытался скушать наших птенцов.
So first of all, I want to share the picture, a new picture. We were experiencing that the birds has been disappearing from the nest, and we didn't know who was stealing them. But this year, with video camera, we were able to film that that the snake has been actually stealing the nest, the chicks. And yeah, so Alexandre tries to put the video now.
А как это самое?
Не получается.
Не, как дальше? Page down?
На следующее, нажми на экране, ну, с мышкой на экран. Да, давай, нажимай.
Просто нажать. Понял.
Вот так.
Так, вначале немножко расскажу о Звонце. Значит,
Few words about Zymantas.
у нас есть несколько постоянных мониторинговых площадок, на которых ежегодно осуществляется учет.
So there are a few monitoring plots where they make annual monitoring.
Вот, например, здесь приведены данные по Повитью вверху вправо. Повить, все знают эту территорию.
So first is Povit plot, there above.
И внизу две другие территории.
And below there are two other sites.
И плотности за последние годы.
And the densities in the last years.
На основании этих плотностей мы рассчитываем численность светлявой камышовки на всей территории болота.
Based on this density, we are estimating the population in Zymantas, size of the population.
У нас есть детальная карта растительности, и для каждого типа растительности мы имеем учеты, и затем эту площадь перемножаем на плотность и получаем оценку численности.
So we are taking the density of the sample plots, and we also have a detailed vegetation mapping. So for each type of vegetation, we have density indexes, which then we extrapolate.
Ну и вот численность здесь приведена на графике. Численность она варьирует приблизительно от 5700 до 2000 ежегодно.
And you see in the chart the number of aquatic warblers from 2,500 to 5,000 segments.
Но нужно сказать, что если мы наблюдаем только 2000 птиц, это значит очень неблагоприятный год, и птицы здесь на болоте есть, но просто не все самцы поют.
But in case of when we mark like 2,000 birds, then it means mostly that it is a very bad weather conditions in area, and the birds are present, but they are not singing.
И, значит, долговременные изменения численности, то есть постепенно все-таки численность уменьшается на болоте Звонец. И это все связано с зарастанием болота кустарниками и тростником.
So in the long-term trend is that the density is slowly decreasing in Zymantas, and mostly it is related with overgrown with bushes.
И здесь видно, вот внизу это часть зарастающая, и вверху это центральная часть, которая еще остается открытой.
So on the above picture, you can see the central part of Fenmire, and the picture below shows the degraded habitat in Zymantas.
На этом снимке детальная карта растительности, и мы видим, что здесь площадь биотопа, подходящей для вертлявой камышовки, является сейчас 5594 гектара. Тогда, когда в 90-х годах она была 8000 гектаров.
Yeah, so you see the vegetation map, and you see that the surface suitable, vegetation surface suitable for aquatic warbler breeding now is roughly 5,600 hectares, compared to the situation in 1990s, which was roughly around 8,000 hectares.
Ну и несколько слов о том, как мы боремся с этим зарастанием кустарником и тростником. Это
So a few words about the habitat management and habitat restoration.
Это в первую очередь кошение
Mowing
и выжигание.
and prescribed burning, controlled burning.
Учитывая то, что это 15 тысяч гектаров, и скосить нужно, наверное, тоже где-то 30-40 ратраков, и за это нужно платить, поэтому мы это себе позволить не можем. Поэтому мы последние годы в основном боремся с тростником за счет огня.
So the prescribed controlled burning is applied when considering the situation that Zymantas is very big, nearly 15,000 hectares, and to mow it, the all area requires a lot of ratraks and a lot of resources, and we don't have those resources, so we take alternative approach of the controlled burning.
Естественно, это выжигание проводится только в ту погоду, когда это можно проводить, когда наносится минимальный ущерб для среды.
And of course, this controlled burning is performed in appropriate weather conditions, so it does not harm the vegetation.
И там, где, если мы не выжигаем, в тростниках никто не гнездится, там пусто, нет вертлявой камышовки. После выжигания тростниковая камышовка распространяется на всю территорию выжигания, но гнездится только в первую кладку, до того, как тростник вырастет больше где-то 50 сантиметров.
So in case of absence of controlled burning, aquatic warblers do not breed. In case of areas where controlled burning has been applied, the aquatic warblers very successfully breed in the area and distribute evenly through the whole surface of a controlled burned area, but they only go for a first brood because in summer the reed vegetation is overgrowing densely.
Здесь снимок весной, в мае, и видно вот граница там, где выжигали, и граница, где не выжигали. То есть здесь вертлявая камышовка гнездится, на тростнике, там, где не выжигали, там нет вертлявой камышовки.
So you see in the picture the picture of a controlled burning, and you see the border, the picture where was the applied controlled burning, and there is a border where the habitat has not been burned, and in this green burned habitat, aquatic warblers has been successfully breeding.
Кроме всего прочего, управляемое выжигание, которое мы проводим зимой, обычно в феврале, оно предупреждает весенние пожары в сухой период. Вы видите внизу в правом углу снимок Споровского участка, болото Спорово, которое сгорело весной в мае. И там, конечно, вы видите, полностью частично выгорел торф, и на всей большой территории не было ни одной птицы, никакой птицы.
And in the picture below on the right, you see the situation in Sporovo. One of the reasons why controlled burning has been also applied is that it prevents habitat burning later in the spring, usually made by local people. So in the picture below, in the right, in Sporovo, you see exactly the situation when the local people has been burning the Sporovo Fenmaya in late spring, and as you see, this habitat is quite destroyed later in the picture.
И в 2020 году у нас горела практически вся Припять, все пойменные луга, все низинные болота в Полесье горели, кроме Званца, где мы провели управляемое выжигание.
And 2020 was a year when most of the Fenmayas has been burning in Pripyat region. So there was a lot of uncontrolled fire, except in Zvanets, which has not been burning because of the successfully implemented water management activities.
И много на болоте Звонец много сделано для того, чтобы обеспечить оптимальный уровень воды ежегодно, независимо от погоды.
So in Zvanets, there's been done a lot in order to optimize the water management in the Maya every year, not depending on the conditions, independently from the weather conditions, general weather conditions.
И благодаря сети построенных сооружений, которые нам позволяют практически ежегодно поддерживать оптимальный уровень воды. Даже в 2020 году, когда везде была сухо, у нас на болоте Звонец был более-менее оптимальный режим.
So thanks to the network of this infrastructure, water management infrastructure, where they are able to maintain the optimal level of Fenmaya in Zvanets, no matter weather conditions, annual weather conditions.
Теперь Спорово.
Now Sporovo.
На Споровском численность варьирует от 400 до 600 самцов ежегодно.
So annual density in Sporovo number is from 400 to 600 singing males.
Здесь вы видите, был проведен в 2017 году, был проведен абсолютный учет на всех площадках, на всей территории.
The picture is illustrating full count made in 2017.
Основная проблема здесь, так же как и везде, это зарастание кустарников.
So overgrowing the bushes is a major threat.
Практически на всех мониторинговых площадках, на которых мы работаем с 90-х годов, численность уменьшается там, где не косили и не удаляли.
So most of the sampling plots we are working 20 years already, we see that the density, the numbers of aquatic warblers are decreasing, mostly due to abandonment of the habitat.
Но там, где осуществляется единовременное кошение, вот в левом углу, вот здесь, вот это единовременное кошение было в 2016 году сделано. Выросла численность в 2017 году, и потом не косили, и опять она потихоньку уменьшилась.
And you see in the chart on the left up top, you see that the immediate effect of a single mowing that has been performed in 2016 caused a jump of aquatic warblers in 2017 increase, and then gradually decreasing again because of lack of mowing.
И там, где ежегодно косится, поддерживается всегда высокий уровень плотности.
And then in the right side chart illustrating the density, the numbers of aquatic warblers when annual mowing is performed.
Ну, вот здесь демонстрация того, что где мы выкосили, там где-то 40-70 самцов на гектар, на 100 гектаров. И там, где зарастает, где мы не успеваем косить, практически ничего не гнездит.
So that if you see the densities in the managed area, 40-70 males per 100 hectares, while in the unmanaged area, which we are not able to manage due to lack of resources, there is absence of male.
Это площадка Костюки, многие ее знают.
It's a plot Kostyuki, most of them, you know it.
Ну, на Споровском у нас достаточно хорошая, так сказать, структура управления. Ежегодно косится около 300-600 гектаров. Собирается биомасса Биомасса продается, правда, не очень выгодно, но тем не менее этого хватает, чтобы немножко продолжить кошение. Но у нас есть на Споровском только 2 трактора.
So in Sporovo, we have 2 tractors only, but we make a regular mowing from 300 to 600 hectares annually. We collect the biomass, and we also even manage to sell the biomass, however, not really profitably, not very profitably, but still we're getting some income, which is helping to maintain regular mowing.
А теперь Сервич.
Now, Servich.
Это относительно небольшая территория, около 300 гектаров. Численность здесь варьирует тоже по годам, и от 15 до 57 птиц.
So that's a relatively small area of approximately 300 hectares, and the density, the numbers of aquatic warblers varies between 15 to 60 singing males.
Но болото это относится к такому переходному типу между низинным и переходным. То есть там уже появляется сфагнум, и оно лет через 100 оно станет верховым болотом, скорее всего. Но тем не менее, пока еще вертлявая камышовка там обитает.
And the habitat here is more going from the fen mire developing into the transitional mire. Yeah, so maybe with the time the aquatic warbler densities will get lower due to turn into the fen mire.
Основная проблема здесь это нарушение гидрологического режима. Из озера вытекала речка Сервич, одноименная, но ее зачем-то спрямили, и по этому спрямленному руслу уровень из-за этого спрямленного русла уровень очень быстро падает. Поднимается в мае довольно высокий, и потом очень быстро падает, и к концу мая, как правило, болото чаще всего бывает полностью сухим.
Yeah, and the major problem in Servich is the water management. To whatever reason, the Servich River going through the wetland has been drained and channelized, and the water level is going down in spring times very quickly. Like usually in May Servich Maya is usually quite dry already.
И поэтому мы сделали специально, так сказать, исследования гидрологами, экологами, и было построено на спрямленном русле водорегулирующее сооружение из пластикового шпунта, и расчет был сделан такой, чтобы весенняя вода, которая вот здесь, видите, внизу, паводок, совсем недавно было снято, вода проходила поверху, а задерживала вот этот вот пик, чтобы в мае вода на болоте оставалась на уровне почвы.
So they built the sluices, dams to raise the water level, and the water level has been fixed in a position that during the spring time flooding, as you can see in the recent picture made on the bottom right, the water level is quite high, while it stands on the surface of the soil in May.
Ну и в следующие годы будем оценивать, насколько повлияло это, насколько успешно это были строительства.
And we will monitor the effect of this restoration in the coming years.
Ну и вторая проблема – это тоже зарастание болота кустарниками. Здесь в основном мелкими кустарниками, разными видами ив. И мы тоже проводим такое экспериментальное кошение, и, в общем-то, дает очень положительный эффект.
So another problem is growing the bushes and they are performing the experimental mowing and monitoring the effect, and it looks that they are getting a really good results.
Кроме этого, на вот эти вот участки выкошенные выходит нереститься много рыбы, которые раньше негде было нереститься.
And in this mown area, there are also a lot of fish is going to spawn. So they're coming to this mire to spawn.
С озера.
From the lake.
Теперь дикая.
Now дикая.
На диком ежегодно от 160 до 220 самцов. И численность постепенно уменьшается, как видите на графике.
So the amount of aquatic warblers from 160 to 220 and gradually decreasing, as you can see it from the chart.
Многие знают мониторинговую площадку Выброды. И вы видите, в 99-м было 45 самцов, потом постепенно уменьшалось. И в прошлом году был один самец только на этой площадке.
So you see the figures now of the monitoring plot Vibrody. As you can see, starting there was a lot, 45 males, and in 2020 there was only one.
Мартин, вот твой учет был здесь.
That's your count, Martin, here.
Так, вот так Выброды выглядели в 99-м году.
This is how Vibrody looked like in 1999.
И вот как они выглядят сейчас.
And that is how it looked now.
К сожалению, это пример, что будет с болотом, если ничего не делать.
Unfortunately, this is the example of the Maya, what would happen if nothing is done.
У нас продолжается дискуссия зеленых экологов, которые считают, что болото должно развиваться само по себе и трогать его нельзя. И поэтому, и особенно это процветает в Бресте, которые не дали нам, в принципе, косить это болото. И вот мы видим результат.
And we are currently discussions ongoing in Belarus among ecologists that some have a point of view that no management should be performed in wetlands and that wetlands should develop themselves. And unfortunately, this is what we get like here as a result.
Наши ботаники подняли все карты, и вы видите, какая тенденция зарастания болота дикого. В 1949 году был 61% открытая территория была, затем она уменьшалась, и в 2018 году 21%. Это имеется в виду все болото, включая и переходный тип.
And here is the figures from the vegetation mapping archives done by botanists, and you see the structure of vegetation, how it is changing in the time, and this is the total area of decoy, including also the transitional Maya area, where in 1949 you see the open Maya is 61%, gradually reduced to 21% in 2019.
Ну и общая численность в Беларуси в самые неблагоприятные годы около 3000 и благоприятные около 7000 практически.
So overall numbers of aquatic warbler in Belarus is in the very unfavorable years they are up nearly 3000 singing males, and in a good years more than 6000 singing males.
И, конечно, долговременный тренд все-таки идет на снижение, небольшое снижение, что объясняется в основном тенденцией снижения на Звонце, на котором все-таки разрастаются тростники и понемножку и еще меньше кусты.
And in long-term trend, it looks that the numbers of aquatic warblers are slightly decreasing, and mostly this is connected to Zymantas situation.
Ну и ежегодные колебания численности, они зависят практически только от уровня воды и возможности его регулирования. На Звонце мы уже научились регулировать воду, и у нас только в годы, когда полностью нет воды нигде, тогда мы не можем обеспечить водой. В другие годы мы можем.
Yeah, so the most important annual fluctuation factor is the water management in the way how we manage water. In case we can manage water when the aquatic warblers are being high, and in case not, then it is in an opposite.
И в значительной степени численность зависит от того, сколько гектаров в благоприятный период мы смогли выжечь, потому что эта территория становится благоприятной для гнездования вертлявых мышей.
And another significant factor of the total numbers of aquatic warblers is also controlled burning, depending on how many hectares they have been able to burn a year before. When the next year, it depends the amount of aquatic warblers.
Все, у меня все, спасибо.
That's it for me, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexander. It's yeah, not so encouraging to see that so many areas are overgrown with forest. Meanwhile, 62% in Dikoye, that's crazy.
Yeah, Dikoye very quickly overgrown.
I would nevertheless should suggest we discuss your presentation and the other one from Belarus together, because we are a little out of time, and perhaps we continue with the presentation of probably Uladzimir. I think is Alexandr Vintchevski is not present at the moment, isn't he?
No, Vladimir will carry out the presentation. It's agreed.
Okay, then it's your turn. Now we can see you.
Hi, Vova.
No.
Hello, everyone.
Now we
First
can
of
hear
all,
you.
I'm very glad to see you all after some break. So here is presentation. Oh. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oops. And now?
Okay, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, great. Okay. It should be full screen at the moment.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that will be presentation. It will consist in two parts. The first part about shortly about peatlands in general, peatlands in Belarus, and the second part about small aquatic warbler breeding sites. I was not dealing with aquatic warbler for several years, and now I continue working on the species in very little extent. And at the same time, working on peatlands and their restoration in the country. And as one of the results of this work is that the vegetation map of all the peatlands in Belarus was developed. So it is a large-scale map. It's not very detailed, but it covers the whole country. This map was finished in the beginning of 2021 and allows us to monitor the conditions, to develop thematic maps, apart from vegetation maps, to estimate dynamics and to plan restoration measures, and also to estimate biodiversity and carbon effects of restoration. And how it is connected with aquatic warblers, it also provides a good background for searching for new potential breeding sites. And for some areas, as partly Alexandre mentioned, for instance, for the key aquatic warbler breeding sites, a more detailed, even more detailed vegetation maps were developed by Institute of Botany. And as for dynamics of all the peatlands in the country, you can see that only 14% of peatlands remained with natural or just slightly disturbed vegetation cover. So nearly half of the whole peatlands are covered with forests at the moment, and 16% are covered with a forest, but were open in 1985. So within this 30 years period, we lost 16% of open peatlands, and 10% more are overgrowing at the moment. It is about all the peatlands in Belarus, not only fen-meyers, not only aquatic warbler breeding sites. As for aquatic warbler breeding sites, there are 3 key breeding sites: Zymantas Morkvenas and Decoy, located in southwest part of the country, and the rest of the national population breeds at 12 sites with low numbers. They are presented by permanent sites and suboptimal sites. The last ones are occupied only under certain suitable weather conditions. So altogether, there are 15 breeding sites in Belarus, and each breeding site consists of several small localities. How do we call them? During the last decade, a number of conservation projects and monitoring actions took place at the 3 key breeding sites of the species, but at the same time, most of the medium and small sites have not been monitored for 5 or even more years. So that's the overall table of these 15 sites with dark green color. I mark the sites that were occupied by the species and relatively recently monitored. Probably these figures are a bit out of date. There were recent counts, but the table was not updated. Light green shows the sites that were occupied by the species, but these sites were monitored 5 or even more years ago. Yellow color shows the sites that were not occupied by the species. And next to these figures, I presented the results of the last counts when the aquatic warblers were registered at the site. And with orange color or light red color, I marked the sites that were not occupied by the species during 2 or more recent monitoring sessions, monitoring visits. So as you can see from the table, that most of the small sites need to be checked and actualized, as they were not visited for 5 or even more years. What was done in the last year? So a number of small sites were visited and counted. For example, this very nice site in Pripyat River Valley. It is a very nice mixture of meadows and very, very tiny, small patches of fence in between. So for the first site, it even looks like being not suitable for the species. Sometimes you can observe a Khymyn male as close as 20 meters to the forest, which is quite untypical for the species. And it is a single male surrounded by bushes and forest, and the next male seen on the next patch of the fen. The site is still used for mowing, and it looks quite nice. More than 30 Khymyn males were registered in 2019. A new locality was discovered within Almany Myers in 2019, also thanks to the newly developed detailed vegetation map for that area. So the field check confirmed the presence of the species. But for some of the sites, review of satellite images and data from stakeholders showed critical habitat changes at some of the sites, especially at those located outside of protected areas. For example, this locality, it is located next to Sporovomaya, but outside the borders of protected area. There were 14 seen males in 2012, and their channel and dam actually cut the site from the lake, considerably influenced the hydraulic regime of the site. So that's how it looked like in 2000. I cannot see the year. Probably 2008, and this is 2012. So you can see the difference. So this dam and channel left very small window to let the water in the site and let the water out the site. And it's also sped up the overgrown with reeds and bushes. Another site was threatened, was not threatened, was affected by peat extraction. Peat extraction nearby. There were two localities, 8 seen males in one and 30-40 males in the second locality. And later checks in 2013 and 2014 resulted in 0 seen males and absolutely dry area. This is a river valley floodplain. The one locality was here, and the second was here. And peat extraction came as close as 350 meters to aquatic warbler breeding site, and the water level dropped down drastically. And one more site, a small site, which hosted 2 seen males in 2016, now is under threat of peat extraction. So considering that there are less than 50 breeding sites in the world, and even small and medium sites have particular importance for species conservation, and especially ensuring connectivity between the source areas, and additionally, the conservation of breeding sites is foreseen by the species action plan. So, which priority measures for the small sites? Immediately measures at least to monitor the numbers and distributions of the species. Based on monitoring data, we should prepare or update passports for the breeding sites of the red listed species. And these passports and protection certificates prescribe a certain protection regime of land use needed for the species conservation. They prescribe this protection regime to the land user, and through submitting these papers to regional subdivisions of Ministry of Environment, the land user overtakes the responsibility to follow this protection regime, to implement land use in accordance with this regime. So that's actually a very nice mechanism. It's quite simple. It can secure protection regime for the habitat of the species or for a certain valuable biotope, like, for example, open fen mires. But these passports should be regularly updated based on monitoring data, and their status should be checked because often land users and local offices of Ministry of Environment are not very interested in introducing additional limitations for the land use. So this is simple, effective procedure, but it requires some attention from conservationists. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Uladzimir. We just spoke about potential breeding sites in Poland and Lithuania and Belarus, but I think you said it like Christoph before, the existing populations, also the small populations, are much more important before we start to identify additional potential breeding sites. So thank you very much. And I think we could discuss now some minutes your presentation and the other one from Alexandre together. So I just forgot to show my video. So the floor is open for a discussion.
Yaroslav, I think, was first raising hand, then Martin, and then Jana.
Okay, in this order.
Okay, so thank you, Vova, for a very nice presentation. And I like especially the last idea about these passports, because it's very important to have such type of information which is then available for the local conservation bodies. So I think we should follow this, and this is a good idea, and we have more or less the same idea in Poland within our project. But I think both in Belarus, but also in Poland, probably in Ukraine, and probably also in Lithuania, there is very important to have such international recognition and support. So even if there are still problems with the proper management of such areas, we should seek support from the international bodies. So probably it is also important issue for next CMS MOU meeting, to provide them information that we know that there are several areas in Belarus, Poland, Ukraine, probably Lithuania, which need to be protected, but still are out of protection. The second, we should also try to locate such areas within all international peatland conservation projects, and we should seek, we look for such international conservation projects and located it for in Belarus, for example, in this case. And especially we within Aquatic Warbler conservation team, probably during the meeting, we should discuss support for monitoring of aquatic warbler in Belarus, because it was not done mainly from logistic and financial reason for many years. So I think such support will be good, and we should discuss it and consider. So just my few thoughts about this. But by the way, returning to Sasha Kozulin presentation, another issue for international discussion is this problem between strict protection and active management on the Myers. This is a general issue, probably not only in Belarus. We know this discussion in Poland, and it sometimes is mixed, that because in forestry, the strict protection is probably one of the best way for protecting of the natural habitats, not active protection with chainsaws, which is very often promoted, at least in Poland. But then on the protection on large peatlands, especially in all disturbed habitats with some impact of the areas from outside, there is necessary to have the active management. So such discussion about Dikoye and some other areas in Belarus or Poland, it's necessary also on international level, and then it can go down to the national discussions. So that's my idea. Thank you, and let's continue discussions.
Yeah, thank you, Jarek. Was the next one? I thought there was one asking for.
So Martin and Joanna.
Martin,
Okay.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Sasha, and thank you, Vova. It's great to see you and great to hear you and to see you healthy. I have a more general question, maybe to Sasha, and it continues the topic mentioned by Jarek. What do you think? What is the main cause that open sedge fen mires cannot keep stable in Belarus? Is it only hydro regime, water, or is it nutrient input through the atmosphere? Because I think in former times, maybe a long time ago, there must have been stable fen mires, stable open fen mires. Otherwise, we would not have the species. But it seems to be not possible anymore. So what is the reason?
Is it climate change already?
Zymantas, поможешь? Алло, Zymantas.
Да, я здесь.
Значит, мы смотрели и изучали торф, типы торфа, залежи, типы торфяной залежи, и смотрели, что и на этом можно сделать вывод, что в прошедшие времена, где-то 50 лет назад, в Беларуси было где-то 3 миллиона гектаров низинных болот.
Sasha, I will translate now. So what they looked, they took the peat samples, they looked at the layering of the samples, and based on the layers, they could make some observations, and they observed that 50 years ago, Sasha,
в Беларуси было около 3 миллионов гектаров низинных болот. Из них
there was around 3 million hectares of fen mires.
Они все были на разной стадии развития. Одни были гипноосаковые, другие покрытые тростником, некоторые были ольхой покрыты, но много было и полностью открытых осаковых. Это стадия развития болота.
So, and they were all in different stages of the fen mires. Some of them were sedge, based on sedge grass, others on the reeds, the others is on the, trees.
Но
генерально,
so
генерально
они развивались таким образом. Вначале был тростниковый торф, потом он сменился осаковым, либо осаково-гипновым торфом.
So there was the first one was first development stage was this reed-based fen mire of the reed vegetation, which was changed by developed into the sedge-based vegetation.
У нас сейчас остались только там 3-4 больших болота.
And we have left approximately 3-4 big fen mires left.
И, к сожалению, из-за других причин они должны были быть сейчас осаковыми болотами, чисто осаковыми болотами по стадии их развития.
And according to the development stages, at this time they should be based on the sedge grass vegetation.
Но из-за нарушений, во-первых, гидрорежима, один год их полностью заливает несколько лет, потому что все практически низинные болота окружены мелиоративными системами, либо спрямленные реки, то есть водосбор у них совершенно изменился.
And but it is not happening mostly because of the hydrology, that they are surrounded by the drainage channels. and either they are flooded or I understand they are drained.
Кроме этого, изменились еще и качество воды. То есть она стала более минерализованной вода.
And of course, the other reason was also nutrients, and that the water quality has changed and it has become more mineralized.
И в таких условиях, если ничего не делать, то болото зарастет, если много воды и много минерализованной воды, она зарастет ольшанником и тростником, если много воды и минерализованной.
So and of course that turns into the development stages. If there is a lot of water, nutrient-full water, vegetation will change into the reeds and bushes.
И если воды совсем мало, тогда она быстро зарастет ивняком, которым ничего не будет препятствовать, потому что воды нет.
And if it is dry, then the trees will dominate.
И поэтому один выход последний на 3 болотах, их уже невозможно оставить, как они есть. Нужно каким-то образом управлять.
And therefore, the conclusion for the remaining 3 big fenmires, you can't leave it to the natural succession. They have to be managed.
И особенно нужно учитывать, что уже около, может быть, 200 лет или больше болота низинные существуют вместе с человеком, который их ежегодно косили.
And of course, we have also to consider the general point that around 200 years, the fenmires has been regularly managed by humans, by mowing. That's kind of part of the dynamics.
Any additions from Vova, perhaps? No. Then we close the discussion and.
Sorry, there were still questions from Joanna, so maybe.
Oh, another one. I missed her. Sorry, Joanna. The last question is yours.
Time. Sasha, Vova, thank you for your presentation and nice to see you. I have one question for Sasha. Can you tell us something more about your trail cameras and how you did it that you registered the predation? Because I have hundreds of hours from aquatic warblers nests and no predation registered. So how you did it? Thank you.
У нас есть снимки, когда на гнездо нападает буразубка, сорекс. У нас есть очень много, достаточно много гнезд, когда буразубка их просто загрызает и съедает головы, и обычно складывает рядышком с этим самым. И есть снимок, как буразубка пытается вытянуть птенца, а птица нападает и кричит, так сказать. И это было для нас не новость, это постоянно встречается на болоте Звонец в основном. И больше в сухие годы. Но мы никогда не видели, чтобы уж нападал на гнездо. Он вот в этом фильме, который у меня есть, он появился над гнездом и уже практически подготовился к атаке, потому что птенцы зашевелились. Но птица мгновенно среагировала и начала на него нападать с огромным криком там, и крыльями его отогнала.
Но вопрос Яны было тоже, как вам получается снять эти, потому что Яна очень много делала тоже снимок, но никак не получилось это. Есть.
Не знаю.
Успех?
Я смотрел причины смертности на Бепше у Дирча, и там тоже не было буразубок как таковых. У нас это обыкновенное дело. Если у нас, когда мы наблюдали птенцов и лигатурили их, изучали корм, у нас, мы каждый день посещали гнездо, и как только мы увидим, что буразубка одного поймала, мы сразу ставили там ловушку и сразу ловили буразубку. Если ловили буразубку, все, она больше не трогала. А если не поймаешь ту буразубку, она всех уничтожит. Это обычное дело. По крайней мере, на Звонце это всегда так было.
So just so I would then summarize the answer that it is quite understand the usual practice, usual situation, and especially in Zymantas, and most of them are predated by Sorex species, and they have quite a lot of records of the Sorex. And concerning the grass snake, that's the first time we tracked that. And when the bird, the snake was about to attack the chicks, but the bird, the mother, has been starting to defend and successfully defended. Well, Sasha didn't get any particular recipe how he's managing to do that, but seems to be that they are usual thing. And when we were tracking, when we were studying the food diet of chicks, when they also were putting the cameras, and when we observed that the Sorex has been grabbing one chick, they immediately having also Sorex traps, and we're catching Sorexes, and this is how we also defended the research object.
Okay, thank you.
Well, okay, thank you very much once again. And we are moving now to the Ukraine, where Mykhailo and Alexandre are prepared to give an overview about the situation of aquatic warblers there. Please, your turn.
Sorry, may I finish this discussion?
Sorry?
Thorsten, you probably have not seen the raised hand by Uladzimir, so the last minutes maybe he will just jump in.
Yeah,
I don't see any. Okay, who's asking?
Malashevich, you should open on the left hand the participant list, so they will see the raised hands.
Du musst Teilnehmer klicken, Thorsten. Wenn du Teilnehmer klickst, siehst du die Liste.
Yeah, okay, I see that. Yes, I asked already, Uladzimir.
Okay, just summarizing the issue of ensuring protection regime for all aquatic warbler sites in Belarus. It should be mentioned that I forgot in my presentation that as at 2012, all the sites were formally protected, either as protected areas or by issuing protection certificates to land users. But this mechanism requires regular updates and site visits. So at the moment, most of the monitoring information is out of date. So summarizing, they were protected, but this mechanism requires regular field and paperwork.
Okay, Vova, thank you. Now I don't see any further hands on the right side. So once again, my invitation to Mykhailo and Alexandre to give their presentation about the situation in the Ukraine.
F5 нажмите. Hello, friends. Hello, Aquatic Warbler team. Let me introduce the presentation, the state of the aquatic warbler population in Ukraine. First, we briefly recall the state of study of the aquatic warbler in Ukraine in the historical period. Since the middle of the 9th century, birds have been recorded during the breeding periods in the northern half of Ukraine. This registration point consistent with the area of distribution of eutrophic Sages mares. The slides show the registration point of individual group of birds as well as areas and permanent registration. But these were fragmentary data on which it is impossible to estimate the number of aquatic warbler boats of the particular region and for the country as well whole. It should be emphasized that by 1995, over more than 35 years of the information or registration from Ukraine were not reported. Until in 1995, the situation with the aquatic warbler in Ukraine was not at all clear, and the number of birds was estimated, for example, in the Red Data Book of Ukraine 1994 as insignificant or 1-2 males only. In 1995, the situation changed cardinally. Two groups of ornithologists discovered large breeding groups of the aquatic warbler independently of each other. After the discovery in 1995 in Belarus, the Martin team invaded Ukraine and found in the Pripyat marshes large breeding groups of the aquatic warbler. The number was estimated at 1,200, 2,200 males. At the same time, ornithologists of Institute of Zoology examined the nature protected area in the Kyiv and Chernihiv regions. In the floodplain of the river Supi has been found two aquatic warbler territories, Vilna Berezanka and Bykiv. Sorry. This area. The numbers were 108, 80, 200, and 10 and 12 males respectively. A wonderful coincidence in time. When this information reached Martin, he decided to check reliability and he visited Supi in May 1996. Since 1997, we have begun the largest scale work in the 50 all breeding sites of these birds. The USPB, at its own expense through its partners, sponsored this activity. Until 2008, almost all Sages-Myers of Ukraine were examined. There where these warblers count potentially live, and these are hundreds of wetlands almost throughout of country. Of 25 regions, we did not visit only 5 regions where probably breedings of the species is particularly zero. Transcarpathian, Ivano-Frankivsk, Chernihiv, Chernivtsi, Donetsk, and Crimea. Based on the analysis on the distribution of sedges marshes of aquatic warbler breeding sites, as in past and now for the territory of Ukraine, 3 population group, Pripyat, Desna, sorry, with based on the analysis of the distribution of sedges, marshes, and aquatic warble breeding site, as in past and now, for the territory of Ukraine, 3 population groups, Pripyat, Desna Dnipro, and South Buk, were indefinite. It should be noted at once that we didn't find aquatic warbler in the southern Buk basin, although we surveyed dozens of marshes in Ternopil, Khmelnytsky, Vinnytsia, Cherkasy, and the southern part of Kiev region. Most likely this group disappeared. In the territory of Desna Dnipro population group, in addition to the already mentioned breeding sites Vilna Berezanka and Kiev and Bykiv. In the floodplain Superior River, 8 breeding areas were found, among which the largest of this part of the country in the floodplain Udai River, Dorohinka Monastery. In some years, the number of aquatic warbler reached 320-360 males. In the early 2000 years, 2 small grouping of aquatic warbler disappeared in Mayer, Zamglai, and floodplain of the Snow River on the border with Russia. They are painted red. Relatively high aquatic warbler numbers still preserved in the Pripyat population group Ukrainian part. We now breeding sites in the Volyn and Rivne regions. The last large breeding site were found by us in the Volyn region in 2004-2008. These are breeding sites in the floodplains of Chernohuska River and in the area of Lake Pisochne. This region, Chernohuska region, the main region Pripyat. In different years, 600, 800 males lived in this 4 territory. Therefore, the most real number occurs in 2009, 2010, when almost all mares suitable for this species were survived. The total number of the Ukraine population in these years was more than 4,000 males respectively. In these years, the highest aquatic warbler numbers in Ukraine was recorded the Pripyat population, estimate and 3,470, 4,125 males in 2009 and 3,630 4,280 males in 2010. The Desna Dnipro population group at 562, 622 males in 2008. And about these males in 210. It is important emphasizes that this number was, according to our estimate, about 20-30% of aquatic warblers that was in the middle of the 20th century. to it before the larger scale drainage of wetland in Ukraine. During 1960, 1980, approximately 80% of wetlands was destroyed in the northern and central regions of Ukraine. We will not consider the situation with dynamics of the state of over two population groups in 2010. The state of the Pripyat population has been relatively stable over the last decade. Although the population trend is negative, the decrease in the number of groups is not critical. On average, the annual reducing in the number of groups is about 52 males, namely about 520 males for 10 years, which is 30% compared in 2010. The main reason of the decrease of number of aquatic warbler in this region is the reduction of habitat area due to the transformation of such habitat. They are overgrown with bushes and reeds. The reason for this are the accelerate of eutrophic process due to pollution of river waters, decreased level of water in biotopes due to the decrease in the amount of precipitation, increasing of overall aridity of the climate. In 2014-2020 spring floods were not in the basin of Pripyat within on except 2018. In some areas, the process and transformation of such habitat was hampered by moving vegetation or hay. But the area of existing high fields has decreased tenfold over the past 20 years. Natural fire plays in the role carving the process of transformation. Due to the large areas of the aquatic warbler habitats in this region, even in very dry spring seasons, large areas do not burn at the remaining situation of birds nesting. Burn-out habitats usually becoming more activities to aquatic warbler next season. For birds of the Pripyat groups, it is typical to move for nesting from the territory to another. In the first of them is unsuitable for breeding birds. All this determines the stability of group. That is why the total number of the Ukrainian part of the Pripyat population is slowly declining. Over the last decade, a much more serious, one might say catastrophic situation has developed with the Desna Dnipro population group. Analysis of the change in numbers during the period showed that annually the number of this group decreased by about 35 males, namely for 10 years by 350 males, about 60% compared to 2 years or 2010. As well mentioned carried in early 2000. Two small settlements in the Chernihiv region disappeared. Already in 2020, we did not find aquatic warbler at another settlement in this region, Horodok, given that we do not Other settlement near in the could be donor for him. We can assume that this settlement case to exist. During 2015-2020, we did not register birds in the breeding site Voronki. Due to low rainfall for 6 years, this breeding area was dry. It is hoped that with the restored water of this territory, birds can return here. There are two nesting groups, Bilocerkivsi and Bykiv. 10 years ago, we were to settlement where a total of about 85% of birds in the Desna Dnipro population group lived. There are Doroginka Monasterische and Udai Voley Rivne Vilne Berezanka ICP Voley. This slide showed in dynamic of the number of aquatic warbler in the first breeding site. Over the last decade, there has been a tendency to reduce the number of this group, on average about 70 males per year. During this period, where their season, 3 seasons when the number reaches minimum levels. 2000 stand out when group was a record small, 80-100 males. In addition, in 2016, we estimate the number of the group about 100-150 males, and in 2015 at 150 to 200 males. It is important to say that in period in 1997 2009 there are only 1 year in 2000 when the number of group was less than 200 males. When we estimate the number at 150, 30, 160 male. Succession process is not like place on this nesting area. The vegetation cover is not transformed. The low aquatic warbler numbers coincided with the seasons of very low water levels in the Udai floodplains. A much more critical situation has developed in the second breeding area Vilna Berezanka. Since the beginning of 2000, an intensivity process of transformation of sedge habitats has begun. They are overgrowth with willow bushes. On the slide, you can see 3 photos that show the transformation of part of the monitoring area, which is located in northern part of this breeding site. In the first years of our monitoring, is the area 30 hectares. We counted 30 males. Due the change in vegetation, the number of birds, aquatic warbler, in the monitoring area gradually decreased. In 2015, 12 males were registered there. In 2016, only 2, and in last years, no birds. Now, about 60-70% of this breeding area is northern part, is overgrown with bushes. You can see this situation. The main reason for this transformation is significant decrease in the water level in this part of the floodplain. This shows the slide of change of number of aquatic warbler over the last 10 years. You can see how catastrophically reduced the number of aquatic warbler. It shows the curve of the water level in the monitoring area. The next slide shows how the water level in Udai floodplain changes over a long period in time, namely during the aquatic warbler nesting period. It can be seen that there is a tendency to reduce the water, and the drainage of the floodplain causes the expansion of the bushes. However, there is hope that a new climate cycle will be soon come and rainfall will be increased. And when it will happen, and whether it will happen in general, the question. Without activity aquatic warbler habitat management, the likelihood of the species surviving will be low. To do this, it's necessary to carry out activities to prevent the reduction of habitats in the species by restoring their transformation, the removal of biomass from river floodplains, artificial additional flooding, and more. Thank you for attention.
Jo, thank you very much for your good presentation of dramatic, if not to say catastrophic data. The floor is open for discussion. Jarek, please.
So, thank you, Mykhailo, for this presentation. It's a pity that Anatolii is not with us. He is now at hospital, so he couldn't attend our meeting. Just to summarize, I can say that in Ukraine there is very well prepared and carried monitoring. So we have the current numbers since last decades every year. It is effect of the joint work of these three persons, so Anatolii, Mykhailo, and Sasha Iliukha. And we hope it will be continue. And it needs support, so we should remember about that. And I think Ukraine has very big potential because still have quite large areas of the core sites like those we have discussed. And I am also sure that in the largest areas of the country, we still can find some smaller sites. The problem is, of course, the capacity of bird watchers, which is much lower there.
Yes.
And we know that in Poland, it was changed in last 20 years. So we have raised the number of bird watchers. And we have, we can store our information in such internet databases, and then we can use it. So then even the singles, individuals, calling males, we can register. And then we found that aquatic warbler is more widespread than we thought before. So, but it, of course, is just a matter of monitoring, but it has also the conservation concern. So such small sites are everywhere in every country more prone for destruction, and we should consider this also on the international level. So I am very happy that in Pripyat Stochit National Park, you join to work with us on the LIFE project, and I think if we will get it eventually, there will be good model of work in protected areas, but then after that we can multiply it on some other parts of Ukraine, what is very necessary, as we can see. So thank you for this presentation, and let's continue discussion.
Would you like to respond directly, Mykhailo?
Directly. Please repeat. What?
Okay.
No, in fact, it was not question, it was just my comment, so
yes,
it's not necessary to respond.
Okay, there's another question of Martin now.
Yes.
And
Hello.
let me translate if needed.
Yeah. I have only one question. Do you think that there is any possibility to make some kind of habitat management in Supi Valley? What would be needed to do habitat management in Supi Valley? Is it only a lack of money or of organization, of administration?
Думаете ли вы, что есть какая-то возможность управлять местообитаниями Супи-Вэлли, и что является причиной? Это отсутствие средств или что-то еще?
Я думаю, что в пределах парка, например, был пилотный проект, который выполнялся 4 года тому назад. Мы имели 25%, то есть 25 гектаров для очистки от кустарника и...
Well, we ran a pilot project on the 25 hectares to remove bushes.
И после этого численность увеличилась примерно в первый год на 10%.
And the population went up 10% in the aftermath in the first year.
It is area about the Birki region. Next year 25% and stop it about 50% from beginning point. Средств, собственно, у нас, конечно, в парке нет для управления территорией, но, в общем-то...
We are definitely lacking funds for habitat management within the park, however.
Самый худший вариант в том, что местное население перестало косить эти территории и началась трансформация растительности.
However, the worst thing is that the territory has been abandoned for the sizing by the population.
Это самая большая проблема, конечно, потому что раньше, во всяком случае, если и были колебания уровней воды, то они катастрофически не влияли на состояние биотопов.
And in the past, when there were the water table fluctuations, they were not so catastrophic in terms of impact on the population.
И, собственно, следствие неиспользования под сенокосы биотопов как раз можно было видеть на 3 слайдах в районе Супоя, которые вы видели, в разные воды.
And you could see the results of the abandonments of the mowing or sizing practices on the slide with 3 photos from Supoya in different years.
Если у нас пойдет нормально проект, то мы проговаривали с директором Украинского общества охраны птиц о том, что природоохранные мероприятия будут разрабатываться не только в регионе Припяти, а также и Супой в Десна-Днепровском регионе.
And if we are success with the project, we have preliminary talks with the director of the Ukrainian Society for Birds Protection, and the habitat management will be conducted not only in Pripyat-Stohid, but also in Supoya and Dnipro-Desnyansky region.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a last question from Jarek again. Perhaps, okay.
Again, maybe not question, just comment, because I know very well the situation as we in Poland, we have been exactly in the same stage. I mean, could you imagine the Biebrza Myers in the 1990s with 15,000 hectares of the succession, and what will be happen and what we can do with national park, with OTOP, if we will have no source of money from EU. I mean, if we will have no LIFE project and then subsequent agro-environmental schemes, we will not do nothing. So the problem is that we should look for any support for Ukraine and locate international projects there for all such type of conservation work. There is no capacity of any national park or a nature conservation organization alone. So it is necessary to work, and I think, and I hope that this pilot project within our life, together with Pripyat-Stohid National Park, can just start and give example how to work, how to organize it. So it's my comment for this information.
Okay, thank you, Jarek. I could imagine that we continue this discussion tomorrow in the afternoon on the Aquatic Warbler Conservation Team meeting.
Yeah.
So then let's finalize this session now. It's time for lunch, and we see again in 1 hour at 3 o'clock. So then enjoy your meals, and I give the chair to Jarek again.
Yes, thank you, Torsten. Yes, we have now time for lunch again by ourselves. So let's make a break, and we'll return at 3 o'clock, and the next session will be chaired by Zymantas. So thank you. You can leave the Zoom going, or you can switch it off. So thank you, and see you at 3 o'clock.
I can say probably that for at least for Lithuania, time for lunch is over. It's time for beer now.